Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Lord Belmont Shores. I have to admit, this week they threw me a little bit of a curveball. You know these LA Franken people, they have me reviewing movies. Now my real area of expertise is hunting vampires, or pitching woo. I'm not a critic, I'm not a reviewer, I am an impaler of vampires and barmaids. Mostly what I do for them is I watch vampire movies, and I'm happy to school them on what the monster hunters did wrong. But this movie has no vampires. It has no vampire hunters. I honestly don't know why we're watching this movie tonight, but I'm sure there are going to be some good takeaways. So please enjoy tonight's movie, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. And since this movie takes place in Victorian England, we're going to have ourselves an absinthe-based drink, what we like to call the Sister Missed Her.
Oh, shake it sexy though.
Wow, that was titillating.
What's going on here?
Oh my God.
Who made that drink? Wait, who? Wait.
Boobies! I got boobies!
I think we better cut.
I get to be a woman for 10 minutes, and I get tackled by some PA and force-fed an antidote. I mean, come on. I didn't even get a chance to take it for a spin, you know? Really let it out. See what the whole woman thing's about. Nah, they're gone. They were nice ones, though.
Can we get to the movie?
Oh yeah, the movie. Titillating. All right, so we start out apropos to nothing on what I can only imagine is an Elton John tribute to Marilyn Monroe or Princess Diana. I mean, if you guys are looking for candles and red curtains, we got you covered. So I was a little confused at the beginning of this movie. It starts out kind of like a Jack the Ripper kind of movie. But what it's really doing is showing us just how terrible forensic science is in the late 1800s. I mean, this guy's walking through town after he's just murdered somebody, hands covered in blood, he has the murder weapon on him, and he gets home, and he barely dabbles any water on that knife. I mean, that knife is not even clean. If a police officer comes in there, he's gonna see a bloody knife, he's gonna see blood all over the towel that he just washed his hands with, and he does not care one bit. There's no DNA. They barely can dust for fingerprints. Dust for fingerprints. If you don't have somebody that literally saw you kill somebody, you're getting away scot-free. The cops in this town blow. He is so frustrated that he hasn't been caught yet that the first thing he does is sit down and start writing out a confession letter.
I must set this down before it is too late. It all began on November last, that grey and fateful day when I was visited by my dearest friend and colleague.
Well, I hope to provide a more complete immunity against diphtheria within a year or two.
We see Dr. Jekyll happy as can be, just trying to cure the world's diseases, until his best friend shows up and reminds him that the life expectancy of somebody in the late 1800s sucks.
Well, it's a long process, I agree, but the point is, you'll be dead and buried long before it's finished.
Now he's all up in his head. I mean, he can't concentrate at all about any of the diseases. All he can think about is how to extend his own life. I mean, this is some real supervillain logic here. This is some Dr. Doom, Red Skull kind of stuff. He's just gonna cure the aging process. He's gonna defeat death, because that's gonna be a lot easier than curing a few measly diseases. right? I mean, yeah, it's almost hack if you think about it. Like, every scientist thinks they're gonna conquer death and live forever. Come on, man. You say, oh yeah, I've got to conquer the world so I can bring peace to everyone. Did you guys ever read the one where Dr. Doom actually does conquer the world, and then he's like really bored because he just doesn't want to run it?
My ambition to rule the entire world.
Conquering the world, fun. Running the world, shit. Thank you, Tony. Wisdom from on high. With that in mind, there is a little bit of a crossover that I need to mention here. In a move that I think Alan Moore or Nicholas Meyer would appreciate, our Dr. Jekyll is also Jack the Ripper. Does that make sense, you ask? Well, yes, actually. Jekyll is 1886, whereas Jack the Ripper is 1888. 2 years, same decade. I'll allow it. Here is a list of some other monster crossover dates, so you'll know exactly who should and should not be able to cross over with each other. All right, so street food in London has a little bit of a reputation for blandness, but this guy's just serving a dry, dirty, hot potato. No fixins, no butter, no sour cream, no chives, no bacon. And he's giving it to you wrapped up in a newspaper. You are definitely getting burns on your hand. I mean, we're talking this is a second-degree breakfast. It's only good for throwing at your enemies. This is a weapon, not a snack. I'd still prefer that over Pret a Manger.
Forgive me for introducing myself in this way, but I'm Susan Spencer. We have the rooms above yours.
So this new girl moves in upstairs, and she is so horny for Jekyll. He's a mad scientist. She still lives with her mom. Horny for Jekyll. This fall, Friday nights on NBC. Show how many holes are in that door from that guy's walking stick. Oh, stop beating the shit out of my door, bro. So, after he successfully completes his little fly experiment, now he's desperate for organs. And I don't know if you know who's in charge of that racket, but it's not the Boy Scouts.
It's a couple of fellas, name of Burke and Hare. They're in the trade, so to speak.
He's not the most precise scientist. Looks to me like he's just kind of eyeballing this. Do not take experimental Jekyll drug if you happen to be allergic to experimental Jekyll drug. Side effects may include increased sexiness, man hands, unwanted hair, wanted hair, shopping. All right, so let's talk about the transformation. It's not exactly American Werewolf in London. It's a little more subtle, but it shouldn't be. In belly button terms, we're going from an outie to an innie.
There is something wrong.
How thin are the walls in this place? I mean, the upstairs neighbor can hear everything Jekyll is doing in his apartment. You think they hear the scream that is imminent from a scrotum implosion? That's also the name of my new band. Check us out.
She had man hands.
100% every man would stop to check out their new rack first thing. I mean, let's be real. Most of us wouldn't be leaving the house that whole night. One advantage, girls don't poop. You've invented a sex change drug, stop there. You're a billionaire. So aside from turning into a woman, did you see the length on the hair? I mean, that's it. You're done. Stop. You have invented a hair growth serum. You're a millionaire. Just retire. Enjoy the rest of your life. You're done.
Sister, what is her name?
News. London News. London News. Kaiser Soze. George Glass. George Glass?
Her name is Hyde, Mrs. Hyde. She's a widow.
Back in the day of the COVID. Masks off, rolling. As far back as 2 years ago. Before the strike. After the pandemic, but before the strike.
Good people, watch your ball.
Hear this.
Okay, so before the internet, they just hired Jelly Roll to wander the streets singing the news at you. You know what? No, I want to warn everybody about something. All right, how to explain this? Okay, I don't want to date Taylor Swift because I don't want to be the punchline of a #1 hit song after we break up. You know what I mean? You understand me?
A lifeboat with half a dozen people aboard, and a big steamliner with perhaps 500. Would you sacrifice the lifeboat to save the steamliner?
All right, let's say you're dating a superhero, or maybe you're married to a scientist. Possibly you're banging a politician. All right, sometimes their hypothetical questions are not hypothetical. Okay, sometimes they're playing a high-stakes game of real-world consequences, and they're just using you to alleviate their guilt. Witness here how she accidentally authorizes the murder of a ton of local prostitutes.
Then you must.
Any means is worth the end result.
If the end result is worthwhile and important enough, then you have no alternative.
Any means? I decided I must take human life so as to eventually prolong it.
You know how I know there's still some man left in Mrs. Hyde? Because she was ready and out the door in 5 minutes. That's right, she tore a curtain right off the thing, made a dress, gone, ready to go. And she looked fine as hell. That's Tim the Tool Man shit right there.
But it's not a mistake.
What?
They're for your sister. You see? Charge to Mrs. Hyde.
Women be shopping. All right, so now Dr. Jekyll is obsessed with killing streetwalkers and harvesting their organs to make his juice. Only Hulk, no Banner. He is addicted. To quote the immortal Axl Rose, I used to do a little, but the little didn't do it. So the little got Mo and Mo-wo. Jekyll's doctor buddy, you know, he's starting to get wise that it might be Dr. Jekyll doing all the murders. Him and the police, they're on a stakeout. And what do you do in a Victorian-era stakeout? You do shots of brandy.
Nothing else to report. Patience, Sergeant Danvers, patience. And moderation. I want a sober and reliable witness.
He wants the police officer to be nice and sober so he has a reliable witness. And the police officer's pissed. He's like, I'm at work. I'm not sober at work. What's wrong with you?
If you find a gent, charge him £1/crown. Tell him it's gone up. Tell him everything's going
A
up.
little monetary note for you. All right, so she specifically was charging a £0.50. A British £0.50 is a denomination of sterling coinage worth about 1/8 of a pound. Now, in American, that's like 12 cents, and in 2024 money, it's about $4, which is way too good to pass up. Yeah. Cheer your arm. Howard's making out with Mrs. Hyde, and his sister comes back in. Then they start to talk in, and Mrs. Hyde's like, oh yes, Dr. Jekyll, my brother, oh, he's very fond of you. Oh, and I'm very fond of your brother.
And I am very fond of your brother.
Howard's kind of like, maybe a little swapsies, little twinsies, little orgies.
A fascinating situation, don't you think?
You know, I can't help but wonder how different this movie would be if, instead of Martine Beswick, they cast the incomparable and talented Anne Ramsey.
Everyone loves his mama. Everyone loves his mama.
How did she take her dress off and become more clothed? As if the blind guy didn't already suspect you, you hand him a bloody cane? And forget Sherlock Holmes. Ice-T would have had this shit wrapped up by now.
You have the right to remain silent.
Just a minute. Let me finish writing my confession. That brings us to yet another parkour ending. Just like in our episode, Curse of the Werewolf. Bing! Did we ever get that link up here on the screen? If not, we need to call a millennial. We have Curse of the Werewolf's really cool parkour scene. Now this is the animalistic side of humanity. And now we have a man who lives the life of the mind. Not exactly one who's done a lot of physical activity. Didn't do so well. His parkour was, he's barely hanging onto the roof, and in the end, what did away with him? A lack of upper body strength. All right, so takeaways. All right, number one, underestimate ye not the fairer sex. I happen to know from experience that a woman is just as likely to pull a knife on you as a man. Probably more likely. All right, so takeaway number two, if you smell something, say something. Now, I'm not trying to promote being a nosy neighbor, but nosy neighbors, even though they're usually the first people to die, often do out the killer before they do, thus saving the neighborhood. So, yeah, there's that. All right, takeaway number three. Find yourself a guinea pig. Don't test on yourself. Rather than jumping from animal trials, which in this case was a fly, directly onto yourself, why not use an actor? I mean, look, I have a lot of actor friends, and unfortunately, the vast majority of their money is made doing sketchy medical trials. So, you know what? I mean, rather than putting yourself at risk, just use an actor. Takeaway number four, mix a better drink. Just like Dr. Jekyll, we kind of eyeballed this one. It didn't turn out so good. Try it out on someone else. Figure out if it actually tastes good. I'd recommend just going with a straight absinthe gin and tonic with a lime. Little gin, absinthe, lime, tonic. That's it. Forget the triple sec. That's what I get for not finding a guinea pig. Yeah. All right, so if I gotta rate this one, and I do, I would give it 4 out of 5 man hands. Well, thank you for stopping by. We had a great movie and a not so great drink. Can't wait to see you guys next time with a better drink and more parkour. Cheers.